Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Global Morning Community.
Good evening. I love my new toy.
Yes, we see. So thank you for joining us and welcome for this live event with Mark and Anastasi. So just a few words. I met Mark back in 2015. And at that time, it was like maybe a few months after I learned that my son, who was 2 years old at that time, never woke. And you can imagine as a mother how I felt. I was devastated. I was crying every day in my car. And this is the time I realized that the first lesson that I had to learn is to believe no matter what. And I started to work on myself. I saw on my computer one day the quote, "When you are no longer able to change a situation, you are challenged to change yourself." And I was doing like we do in this morning community. I was writing every day all of my gratitude list. I was writing every evening also all my blessings, all the things that made me smile. I was doing my breathing exercise. I even follow a course for reprogramming the mind. And finally, everything started to change. And pure law of attraction, one day Mark called me and told me, "Clementine, I'm writing another book about health now. And their solution, are you ready to try?" And of course, at that time, the first thought came in my mind was like, don't be stupid. There's no cure. No way, But the other part of me, the part that have been trained for months now, started to say, you make things possible. You can do it. Go for it. And that day I accepted. And that day, Mark offered me his support to visit the best world experts and also his ongoing coaching. And for the last 5 years, Mark has been working on my mindset to start to shift my focus, sending me information so I can shift about what I believe it's possible or not. And asking myself better questions. And finally, to come to achieve a mindset to see in every challenges an opportunity, a potential. So, long story short, today my son, Gabrielian, can walk, he can run, he can jump. And today, people from all over the world started to watch the recovery of my son and started to ask questions what I have done. So tonight, you will get an idea also about what I have done. And I want to tell you also, so you might probably wonder, who is Mark, And so Mark is a writer. He has wrote over 30 books about alternative medicine. And he's also the famous writer of The Laptop Millionaire. So he has an incredible story. And I'll bring him now live. And today, Mark is also the CEO of an alternative medicine company. So thank you, Mark, to be with us tonight.
Thank you, Clementine. Thank you, Krasimir. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting to be with us. So, Mark, you have an incredible story, how you were, homeless and in debt, and finally you become a very successful entrepreneur. So can you share with us a little bit of your story?
Sure. And you started talking a bit about your mindset shift about 5 years ago. And it is incredible to see how far you've come, Clementine, in the last 5 years. And it's really a testament to you and the hard work you've put in your own life. But also it's a testament to what we're going to talk about today, which is the power of shifting your mindset. What happens when we start thinking differently. And yes, when I started out back in 2003, 2004, I was in a very difficult situation. I was in my early 20s. I'd worked as a security guard for a couple of years. I was in debt. I'd been fired from my job. I was working in sales. After my job as a security guard, I worked in sales for about 14 months. And somehow I managed to earn less money in sales than I did as a security guard. I wasn't very successful as a salesperson. And but when I was about 21 years old. Now at that stage, I'd been depressed for 8 years. My father had suffered from depression for 30 years. He was on antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills. I learned how to do depression by modeling my father. So at age 21, I was working as a security guard in England, and I was taking sleeping pills so I could sleep a few hours in the morning. I was working nights, and you start with half a sleeping pill, and that works for a while. Then you need the full sleeping pill, then 2, then 3, and then 3.5. Well, I took a bunch of sleeping pills, not to commit suicide, but to manage to get some sleep. And what happened was that I almost died. I woke up 2 days later, completely dehydrated. I couldn't see, I couldn't open my eyes. And it was very bizarre. A little voice said to me that morning, it said, today begins your study of the topic of happiness, and go to the Borders bookshop in town. I was living in Oxford, just outside of Oxford at the time. Go to the Oxford Borders bookshop, and you will begin your study of happiness. I had no idea where this thought came from, but that's what I did. I got up, took a bus, went into Oxford, went to that bookshop, still very depressed, very alone, very much someone with low self-esteem, no self-esteem whatsoever. And that day I picked up 3 books. One book was called Total Self-Confidence by Robert Anthony, Dr. Robert Anthony. Another one was called Your Erroneous Zones by Wayne Dyer. A great book, highly recommended. It explained how people have so many neurotic behaviors like worry and guilt and things like that don't really help in any way, that they're very destructive mind patterns. And I recognized, wow, I have all of these neurotic beliefs. I felt guilty. I felt responsible for my parents divorcing. I felt responsible for my parents being unhappy, depressed, etc. I felt I worried all the time. I felt unworthy, unloved, etc. The third book that I found was called Giant Steps by Anthony Robbins. Not Robert Anthony, but Anthony Robbins. And that book taught me a very interesting lesson, the idea of modeling success. So that's how I started. I took that concept, this one idea from Tony Robbins' book, Modeling Success, and I thought, okay, if I want to become happy and overcome depression, I don't want to use drugs, pharmaceutical pills like my father has. Let me make a model. Let me write down, what does a happy person look like? What do they do? What do they say? What do they think? Where do they go? Where do they not go? What do they not say? What kind of people do they surround themselves with? What are their beliefs? So I created an entire model of what a happy person looked like. And I had a friend back home in Greece where I grew up. I'm actually French, but I grew up in Greece, and I moved to England when I was 18. And this friend of mine, Cyril, he was a happy-go-lucky guy. Everybody loved him. He was friendly. He didn't have a mean bone in his body. And I realized, wow, when I write down an entire model of what Cyril thinks and does and acts and says, etc., it's the polar opposite of what I do. I would always complain. I would be mean. I would backstab or talk behind people's back. I would always gossip. I was so unhappy with myself that's what came naturally to me to do at the time. And bit by bit, I decided, okay, let me start becoming more like someone who is happy. Let me start thinking and talking like someone who is happy, rather than doing what I did before. And I had to work a lot on my mindset to overcome these negative mind patterns. And it took a while. It took a few months. But suddenly I realized one day, wow, I'm much more confident. I'm more outgoing. I'm more comfortable around people. I now enjoy talking to people rather than being isolated and not seeing anyone for 8 years. I was pretty much keeping to myself. That's why I was working as a security guard at night. So no one would be able to see my face. No one would be able to talk to me. I would just work at night by myself and just retreat back to my apartment, to my room, really, and be alone. And things started to shift. And then one day, I remember being on the Underground in London, and I came across this little ad in a newspaper for a Warren Bourget videotape. It was called Welcome to Freedom. And you could send, I think, £5 through the mail, something to that effect, and they would ship a videotape of Warren Bourget's 90-minute presentation on financial freedom, how to think differently. And I sent off my £5, and a few weeks later, I got this VHS tape through the mail. And I remember it was a Saturday morning. I picked it up. It was 8 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. I started watching it. I watched that presentation 6 times in a row. Like all day, I was just watching his presentation over and over again. And it blew my mind. The idea that there was information out there that could help improve your life, also financial. And he was saying the same things that I'd read in these previous books, that you need to change your mindset in order to change your life. And that's what I did. I started utilizing some of these tools, and pretty quickly I managed to get some interesting success by having an online business. And I'll get to that. But I want to share with you this quote with you, Clementine, and Krasimir, and our audience here, which is an amazing book I read in 2004 called Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. Now, at the time, I wasn't religious in the slightest. I wasn't spiritual. I'd studied business management. I worked in sales for 14 months unsuccessfully. I was fired from my job. I ended up being broke and homeless. But and I was just trying to get ahead in the world. But I read this book, and this sentence really grabbed my attention. And it said here, in Conversations with God, it said, and this is apparently this is the divine, this is spirit, this is God speaking to the author in this book, supposedly. So it says, you get your life to take off by first becoming very clear in your thinking about your life, about what you want in your life. When your thoughts are clear and steadfast, you begin to speak them as truths, and you speak them out loud. Use the great command that calls forth creative power. And this command is, I am. Make I am statements to others. I am is the strongest creative statement in the universe. Whatever you think, whatever you say after the words I am, sets into motion those experiences, calls them forth, brings them to you, and there's no other way the universe knows how to work. There's no other route it knows how to take, and in routes it knows how to take. The universe responds to I am as would a genie in a bottle. In other words, when you say things like, I am amazing, every day in every way I am better and better, I am inspiration, I am power, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom, I am enough, I am a leader. These were the types of affirmations I started using around 2003, 2004 to start changing my life. So, back to my story, back to answering the question. In 2003, I got fired from my job in sales. I'd started studying some personal development, but I found myself feeling better about myself, more confident, more alive, more positive. But suddenly I found myself without a place to stay. I got kicked out of my apartment because I didn't have the income to pay the rent. I found myself £6,000 in debt, and I ended up about 3 months after that homeless. I was living in an abandoned building in off of Earl's Court Street. I forget the name of the street exactly. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to start applying this on a completely different level. I need to really get to the root of this. I'd started working on my beliefs about myself, but now was the time to work on my beliefs about money. Now, I want to share a few things that I came across at the time, but I'll tell the story this way. I listened to an audio interview by a wealth expert in April 2004, early April 2004. Now, I'd been homeless for about 4 months at that time. And in it, this expert explained that you need to identify your limiting beliefs about money and eliminate them if you want to have a transformation in the financial realm. And I'd seen, okay, I've been able to transform part of my life so far. This will work. So I spent the next 3 days just sitting down on the concrete floor of that abandoned building. It was about me and 20 or so other homeless people. And I used a journal like this. And I wrote in it certain questions. I started writing down, the worst thing about money is ... The worst thing about rich people is ... I can't make a lot of money because ... And the aim of the game was to answer those questions, to write down whatever came to you straight from your subconscious mind without really filtering it. And as a result, within a few hours, this exercise took a couple of days, I had 44 limiting beliefs about money written down. And there were limiting beliefs such as rich people are evil, greedy, and exploitative. We are good people. That's why we don't have any money. And that was a belief that my father had taught us. Another one was, the only way to get rich is to bribe the Greek government. So that, again, was a belief that my father had. Other things I remembered was that I grew up thinking it's not fair that the other kids at school have these beautiful Mercedeses and BMWs and Renault Espace and all these things when we're going home, when my mother's driving us in a 25-year-old rusty Dacia from Czechoslovakia, I believe. And I would imagine their cars, the BMWs and these rich people, their cars, erupting into flames on the highway, out of jealousy and envy. Again, so again, negative beliefs, because if you have negative beliefs towards rich people, you will never achieve financial success, because subconsciously you're saying, if I achieve that kind of wealth or success, people will hate me and will want nasty things to happen to me, right? So I worked diligently for 3 days at identifying these limiting beliefs and eliminating them. And 30 days later, I was earning $10,000 a month in passive income online on the internet. And how this happened was that I attended a seminar. During that time, I came across an opportunity to attend a live Anthony Robbins seminar in London, and the tickets cost £300. Now, I was £6,000 in debt. I had £300 left on my 7th or 8th credit card. It was the limit. It was all that I had left, was that extra £300 or £400 maybe left on a last final credit card with some credit left. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm not paying rent because we were squatters in this abandoned building, right? So we were illegally squatting a building, so we didn't have to pay any rent. And I thought, okay, I don't need to pay rent, but that £300, I can live off of that. I can buy food. I can survive for a month with that £300. Or I can go and attend this Tony Robbins seminar in London. And I thought to myself, you know what? Normally, what I would normally do is I would never ever invest £300 in attending a live seminar. And so, since that would be my normal way of thinking, and it brought me to this situation where I'm homeless, this must be the right decision. by contrast, by opposition to it, I have to go to that seminar because normally I would never go and do such a thing. So that's what I did. I rolled the dice one last time, and I thought, okay, I'm already in a lot of trouble financially. I might as well do this. If this seminar can change my life, I might as well give it a shot. And the event was amazing. I was there at 6 a.m. every morning. I was there. I was the last one to leave. I asked every question. I took notes about everything. And during one session, the person sitting next to me, his name was Francis, I asked him what he does, and he told me a bit about his business. He was an engineer. But he also had an online business where he was selling an ebook online on the internet. And I thought, oh, okay, that's nice. And I thought to myself, you know what? Let me keep his contact details. Maybe he can give me a job. At the time, I was only thinking in terms of finding a job. I wasn't thinking like an entrepreneur. And a few days later, okay, I'm again back at on the floor, on the concrete floor of that building, with my journal, and I'm brainstorming and I'm writing down things, and I was doing these exercises that Tony Robbins had suggested, writing down 100 reasons why you must achieve your goal, brainstorming 100 ways how to achieve your goal. And as I was doing that exercise, 100 ways how, I remembered what Francis said during the seminar, that he was selling an ebook online. And suddenly I thought, you know, I think I can do this. I think I can start a business online selling an ebook through the internet. It doesn't sound complicated. I don't have any experience in business, but let me give this a shot. So I went to a payphone, called Francis up, and I explained to Francis my situation, because of course I hadn't told him what had happened during the actual seminar. I hadn't told him about my life circumstances during the seminar. And he said, so what do you want, Mark? Do you want to borrow money? I said, no, I want to work for you for free if you'll just share with me your secret, your strategy on how you sell your ebook online. And he kind of laughed at that. He said, you know, there's no big secret to it, and you don't need to work for me. I have employees. And he said, just find a target market, a group of people that have a need, a problem that needs a solution, create that solution for them. You know, you could go and research that solution, put it into an ebook, PDF or Word document, and there you have a solution, a product. Then create a website where you can sell that solution to your target market, and finally drive traffic to your to that website to sell your product to that target market. Sounded pretty simple, so that's what I did. And within 28 days, I had my ebook ready. I had the website ready. I learned how to drive a bit of traffic with Google Ads. And within 2 days, maybe 3 days, I was making about 5 sales a day at $67. And that was the start. And I realized, very quickly, my life transformed, because I went from being broke and homeless to making $10,000 a month. Then I programmed my mind. By the way, I'd used these techniques I'm going to share with you today, these mind magnetic techniques to attract things to you in order to manifest that outcome. Then I started programming my mind for I earn $100,000 a month. And then that happened. Then I programmed my mind for my book becomes a New York Times bestseller. And then that happened. And then at the end of this talk today, I'm going to share with you a little bit about a goal achievement technique, which is the closest thing I know to magic. It's a technique to achieve even impossible goals. And I'll tell you a bit about what I'm doing now and how this has worked. But first, I want to share with you a bit about these mind power techniques that I've used the last few years. The point about all of this is that my life changed pretty radically, Clementine and Krasimir, in 2004. But people think, oh, it's because you went to a seminar, or because you sat next to Francis and he told you how he sells online, or it's because of you were lucky, or it's the strategy, whatever. The truth of the matter is that whatever strategy I would have tried, it could have been real estate, it could have been the stock market, it could have been a different business. That's not the point. The point was that I worked diligently on changing my mindset, because that's where change occurs. I'm here on this call today because I want to share with the audience and with you, Clementine and Krasimir, and with whoever is out there in the future, that we have such tremendous potential for creating our life, for changing our life. I'm sure that everybody who's on this call, everybody who listens to this, there's something in your life that you want to change. Maybe you want to meet someone. Maybe you want to get pregnant or have a child. Maybe you want to make more money, change your career, transform your life in some way. I want to share with you the tools that I've come across and used successfully to do exactly that, to achieve that outcome. And I'm really excited to share with you that final strategy tonight, which is kind of like magic. So, but before I do that, I made some notes here of some quotes I started reading back in 2004, how I got into this path, if you will. I told you about the book Conversations with God, where this spirit, the divine, is saying, use the great command that calls forth creative power, I am. But I started reading more about quantum mechanics. I started reading more about personal development, the law of attraction. And I started seeing a pattern. I started seeing that successful people were saying the same thing over and over again. For example, Earl Nightingale, who created the program The Strangest Secret, in 1957, he said, we live in a world of cause and effect. Thoughts are the causes and your present conditions are the effect. You need to control your thoughts or change your thoughts in order to control or change your life. See yourself enjoying the achievement of your goal. Feel like it's already done. Feel like it's yours, and then it will manifest into your life. Now, that is something that most people don't do. They set a goal and they think, okay, great, I'll work towards it. The first thing you need to do if you want to change your life is sit down and get absolutely clear, get total clarity on what does it look like, feel like, taste like, everything. What are you hearing, tasting? In that moment when your outcome has been achieved, start with the end in mind. It almost sounds like a cliche nowadays, but start with the end in mind. Through an incredible series of events since the end of 2007, I find myself now being the managing director and vice chairman of the board of a pharmaceutical company, of a medicinal cannabis company. And once we'll have set up our facility, it'll be interesting to see how much of these concepts and ideas, these spiritual and law of attraction, personal development type of ideas, I'll be able to incorporate into the day-to-day culture of our company and of our executives, of our salespeople, of our growers, of the whole team. That is something that I'm interested to see how this applies into a corporate setting. But I was saying about these gurus that I started studying back in 2004. That said, Napoleon Hill said, all success begins with definiteness of purpose and a clear picture in your mind. Okay, again, I need to have a clear picture in my mind. I need to have a definite purpose, exactly why I'm doing this and what does it look like? What does it feel like when it's done? Tony Robbins said, I use subliminal messages and affirmations to condition my mind to believe I could succeed. Anybody who wants to succeed needs to know that it doesn't just happen. You have to condition your subconscious mind. And these tools that I'm going to talk about today, tools such as affirmations, visualization, subliminal messages, hypnosis, the Mind Store method, the Cybernetic Transposition method, the Golden Altar method, etc., the 100 Reasons Why exercise, etc. All of these are specific tools to condition your subconscious mind, to imprint your subconscious mind with a specific outcome. Brian Tracy said, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Change your thinking, you will change your life. Mark Victor Hansen said, focused mind power is one of the strongest forces on Earth, and most people go through life with very scattered mind power, very unfocused, very diffused and dispersed mind power. So focused mind power is one of the strongest forces on Earth, he says. Jack Canfield says visualization is the most powerful tool for the transformation of consciousness and the activation of the law of attraction. So I was reading all of these kinds of things, and I thought, you know what? I haven't been successful up until this point. These successful people are telling me that this works. I might as well try it. I have nothing to lose. I might as well try this. But at the same time, as I started reading and studying more about success and wealth creators, I came across not just speakers and trainers and authors of success, but some of the wealthiest people of all time. So, for example, and this is important to share. Aaron Scheinfeld is the billionaire founder of the company Manpower Inc. And he said, now this is about 50 years ago, he said, Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, hundreds of the wealthiest industrialists of all time had one thing in common. They all knew that everything you see comes from the field of the invisible. And if you discover the secrets of how to use this invisible power, you can be, do, and have anything. So I read this and I thought to myself, as a young man of 24, well, I haven't learned this at school. I haven't learned this from television. I haven't learned this from my family or my surroundings. But somehow, if these successful people are saying this, they're not just saying it for the heck of it. There must be something to it. What is this invisible power? How does it apply to me? How can I apply it in my own life? How can I discover the secrets of how to use it? And what will happen if I do? Let me see. I'm broke, homeless, in debt. I have no friends, no girlfriend, no social life, no career. What could I lose? There's nothing to lose. Let me just try this. So I went into it with a lot of faith and eagerness to learn. I wasn't cynical about it. I see a lot of cynicism nowadays, but also people get information from so many different sources, they don't even know where to really start. Just find some method and just stick to it. So just keep going with that. Andrew Carnegie, he said, "You are what you think." Now this is a American industrialist from the late 19th century, one of the wealthiest people who's ever lived on this planet. And he said, "You are what you think." So think big, believe big, love big. Now closer to home, where I grew up here in Greece, the Greek billionaire Aristotle Onassis, before he would go into a meeting, he would rehearse in his mind he would visualize and rehearse over and over again how he wanted the outcome of his meeting to be. And he would have these meetings with high-powered industrialists and wealthy individuals who would normally say no to any kind of offer. But somehow, as if by magic, they would say yes to Onassis. Because in his mind, he would have rehearsed it so many times, he would go into a meeting with complete confidence about how that meeting was going to roll out, because he had already created that outcome in his mind. He was tapping into the power of his subconscious, this invisible power to create that outcome. Conrad Hilton, who created the Hilton chain of hotels, was also very fond of these kinds of techniques. He would use his intuition, but also he would create mental pictures of himself owning a hotel before he actually owned it, before he actually put in an offer, before acquiring it. He would visualize himself as the owner of that property and then would put in an offer. And finally, W. Clement Stone, he started with $100. He set up his own insurance company. And he became a billionaire. And he said, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And he said, self-suggestion makes you a master of yourself. What is self-suggestion? It is programming to yourself, to your subconscious, using affirmations, positive imagery, hypnosis perhaps. Nowadays I would suggest also subliminal messages, of course, visualization. And again, I would come across these examples of people who would achieve tremendous success thanks to these techniques. And I can give many more examples, but I'd like to get into some of these techniques and just share with you what I've used over the years. So the first thing I did after reading Conversations with God was I started using affirmations. I am statements. I'd come across example after example of people who changed their lives by using affirmations. So some of my favorite affirmations were, I am amazing, I'm inspiration, I am power, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom. I love my life, I am rich, I am loved, I am grateful. I love my life, I am rich, I'm loved, I'm grateful. I now deeply and completely allow millions of dollars into my life. Every day in every way I am better and better. Every day in every way I am richer and richer. Every day in every way I am healthier and stronger. Every day in every way I am more handsome and sexy. I had a lot of limiting beliefs, as I said, and very, very low self-esteem, and those kinds of this kind of reprogramming helped me tremendously. So affirmations. And what happens is that there are thousands and thousands of different affirmations you can use. For somebody who wants to heal, we've actually created a subliminal software program. It cost quite a lot to develop, but it flashes on your computer screen every 5 seconds an affirmation. And you get to type in the affirmations that you want. You get to choose out of thousands of different affirmations, or I think about 30 different programs. And what I'm saying is that for every specific goal that you might want to attract a relationship, you might want to get pregnant, you might want to achieve some career advancement or some sales goals. There are different programs, lists of affirmations that help support that kind of success. Why? Because every specific outcome, before achieving that outcome, you need to have the associated mindset that naturally cascades into that outcome. And in fact, what I discovered in 2004 is the following formula. It was explained to me as the IT jar model. How our identity, our conditioning, leads to our thoughts. Our thoughts, our beliefs, that lead then to our judgments and decisions. And now all of this is happening in the sphere of the invisible. What is the invisible? Our beliefs, our thoughts, our subconscious thoughts, our judgments. You don't really see them. They're happening somewhere in the ether, in your mind. But then they cascade into physical reality in your actions and results. That's the R, the AR of IT jar, right? So your conditioning and your identity leads to your thoughts, to your judgments and decisions that then cascade into actions and results. And many people change their actions trying to get a different result, but they still end up broke, in debt, in a bad relationship or in no relationship, with some health problem, with some anger, etc. What needs to happen is you need to go upstream. You need to change your identity. You need to change your subconscious beliefs that underpin your thoughts and judgments that then cascade into actions and results. You need to go upstream, identify your subconscious limiting beliefs, negative beliefs, eliminate them, and then that opens up the path for you to do the positive aspect of this, which is affirmations, visualizations, subliminal messages, etc. There are a whole range of techniques for identifying and eliminating limiting beliefs. If we have some time at the end, we can maybe take some questions about that. But what I wanted to say is that that's how I got started with this. And with the IJAR model, I realized that I needed to change my subconscious beliefs in order to change my life. But then to deepen that process, I used affirmations, visualization. So how it works is like this. Every single morning, as I wake up, I do my affirmation. It only takes 2 minutes. Do my affirmations. Spend another 2 minutes closing my eyes and visualizing. I usually do that as I start my meditation. And then whenever I'm on my computer, I have my software flashing my subliminal messages on the screen. I have vision boards everywhere. I'm a big believer of vision boards, and you can see some of them in my books. Also, a hypnosis. I found this fantastic hypnosis by Laura DiGiorgio on abundance, and that's the one that I use. Laura DiGiorgio, her hypnosis on abundance. I used a different technique as well, called the Mindstorm method. So in the Mindstorm method, one of the techniques talked about by Jack Black is the following: the board of directors. And how that works is that you close your eyes, you relax yourself, and you visualize yourself entering this mansion, this beautiful building that's your house, in a setting of your choosing. And as soon as you enter this, you go through this area, which is this magnificent shower of light and warmth, and it just heals your body. You know, in your mind, just visualize yourself in that space, in your mansion, that this energy just flows through you and heals you and calms you and soothes you and gives you whatever you need. And then there's different rooms in this mansion that provide, there's the healing room, there's the abundance room, etc. But my favorite room is the board of directors, where you step in and there's this big, huge oval table, and sitting around the table are your advisors. And you can place around there whoever you want. It could be Brian Tracy, it could be whatever captain or titan of industry, Jeff Bezos perhaps, that inspires you, that you need advice from. But and there's a few other techniques that I'll touch upon. But what's very important to understand is that it's not enough to just do these techniques. You've got to also work on eliminating those limiting beliefs and also rejecting doubt. I know a lot of people who have read the books and they started using a bit of affirmations, and because they didn't get a result instantly in the first hour or first day or first week, they gave up. And they go, oh, this doesn't work. The most important thing you need to have here is an absolute belief, an absolute faith that this is how our universe works. We are creative beings with a tremendous creative power given to us by this invisible force, given to us by our Creator. Now think about this for a moment. If this universe exists and there was nothing before, it must come from some energy, must come from some creative force created this universe. And since we're part of this universe, we've been imbued with some of that creative power. And think about your life. You've created your life so far, your beliefs, your mindset has created the results, the circumstances of your life. Think about people who are successful athletes, successful football players, for example. I like to follow the Premier League, and in fact, that's the only kind of TV watching I do. I like following Arsenal, the British football team in the Premier League. Think about the belief that you need to have, the mindset you need to have to become the 1 out of 10,000 football players that makes it to be a professional football player. you need to have commitment. You need to love playing football. You need to be doing it not for the money, but because you really love doing this. You need to have a massive reason why to train in under any conditions, to be competitive, a mindset of being competitive as well. You want to be better than everyone else on your team, in your town, in your country. You want to be one of the top football players in the world. What I'm trying to say is that there is a specific formula, a specific recipe called the mindset of a professional football player. It's the same thing I'm noticing with the CEOs of companies, whether it's in my field now, which is medicinal cannabis, or in other corporate fields. There's a very specific mindset that leads certain people to a leadership position at the top of a company. And that is actually what I've been studying a lot about lately, is the mindset of successful leaders. This is not what I would have studied in my mid-20s. In my mid-20s, I was studying about making money, about marketing, about sales, about business, joint venturing, etc., traffic generation, but I wasn't thinking about how to step up as a leader. It's a very specific mindset. Same thing with the mindset about healing. There's a very specific mindset that is needed when it comes to healing. Again, from the book Conversations with God, it says in there, in highest truth, I wanted to share with you a little bit about healing, and we can talk a bit more about these strategies of how to reprogram your mind, perhaps during the questions. But in the book Conversations with God, it says, in highest truth, love is all there is, all there was, and all there ever will be. You are at the core of your wonderful self, that aspect of divinity called love. Now, there's a story that I came across, again, it was in 2005, came across this story. Keep in mind, I'm going to share with you a story which is spiritual in nature. Keep in mind, I'm not religious, I'm a business person, I'm a business executive, but this story really grabbed my attention, and I love sharing it. And the story goes like this. I was at a seminar, and we'd finished the event, and the speaker said, okay, we have 5 minutes left. Would you like to know how the universe began? And we all said, yeah, okay, why not? Haha, okay, fine. There was about 200 of us in the room. And the speaker started saying, okay, this is how the universe began. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then consciousness arose. Consciousness created, destroyed. Consciousness does not know where it comes from, but it knows it exists and has always existed. And it created, destroyed, created, destroyed, created, destroyed. After a while, it got boring it got bored from doing that, and it decided to create a playground. And it created a playground, but it's still boring because there's nothing going on the playground. So consciousness decided to create a game to play on this playground. But consciousness is all that is. So there's no, win or lose. There's nothing really at stake. And besides, consciousness is all alone. It's lonely. So consciousness decided to create out of itself different fragments of itself, little souls to animate this playground. It's still all him. It's still all this oneness of consciousness. But part of the game is that consciousness gets to forget that who it really is, and it gets to play this game. And but still, it's still boring because there's nothing at stake. So how can you make this game feel much more alive, much more exciting, like there's something at stake? So if you go to a casino, you go to Las Vegas, and you just bet $1. If you win, you win $1. If you lose $1. There's not much at stake. It's not very exciting. But what if on a roll of a dice, you're betting your life? You could live or you could die. I mean, imagine you have that illusion that you could actually die. That would make things really exciting for consciousness, right? And that speaker that day kind of concluded that story saying that life is a game. Nothing ever really dies. It's not the end. It's start over, and we are all just part of consciousness playing out a game. And all I can say is that in that moment, hearing that story, I'm not sure if I'm relating it very well, if it's making any sense to anybody listening to this right now. But for me, at the time, it really resonated on a level that was tremendous. I understood in that moment what all of this entire universe was about. And I understood from further reading that imagine if there's just this one invisible energy in the entire universe, and it's an energy of love, and an energy from the creator, this creative energy that is really just love. And just like the billionaire Aaron Scheinfeld said, everything that you see comes from the field of the invisible. And if you discover the secrets of how to use this invisible power, you can be, do, and have anything. Well, what is this invisible power? What are the tools to use it? I've mentioned some of the tools. But I want to bring this back to healing and say that in Conversations with God, again, it says, in the highest truth, love is all there is, all there was, and all there ever will be. You are the core of your wonderful self, that aspect of divinity called love. So imagine if this story is true, this spiritual story I just related is true, and that we are all part of this singular oneness of energy, a singular energy that is love. And that's the truth of us. That's what authentically we are at our core. It makes sense that balance, peace, order, good health would flow from such a state, from a state of love. If you bring yourself back to love, it would be natural for you to experience some healing. Move away from your natural state of love, and chaos and disorganization ensues in your relationships, in your business, in your marriage, in your body, in your healing. He goes on in that book saying worry is just about the worst form of mental activity there is, next to hate, which is deeply self-destructive. Worry, hate, fear, and their offshoots, anxiety, bitterness, impatience, avarice, unkindness, being judgmental, condemning people. All of these feelings, negative feelings, which are the polar opposite to love and acceptance and forgiveness and all of that, and joy, gratitude. But all these negative beliefs, all these negative emotions rather, attack the body at the cellular level. It is impossible to have a healthy body under these conditions. All illness is created first in the mind. And I'm linking this back to what we're talking about, mind power, how to achieve your goals, even your healing goals, thanks to the power of the mind. So back in 2005, I organized a little health seminar in London, and I had Richard Mote, a British researcher on psychoneuroimmunology, attend the event and speak at the event. And during that talk, he asked the audience, who here has a serious health problem? And a few people put their hands up. And he asked the lady in the front row, what's your health challenge? And the lady said, I have breast cancer. He said, okay, left breast or right breast? And I think she said left breast. And he said, okay, let me think. Okay, who in your family did you have a huge, who in your family of a female persuasion did you have a huge falling out with 2 years ago? And that woman just was aghast. She couldn't believe what he had just said. She said, she stuttered, how do you know? How do you know this? 2 years ago, I had a massive falling out with my mother. I haven't spoken with her since. He says, yes, well, that anger, that resentment, those negative emotions, that fight that was never resolved through forgiveness and all of this, usually manifests on the left side of the body and in the breast for a woman. And I was just amazed. What Richard Mote has done, he has spent the last 30 years identifying the beliefs, the mindset that causes, after a few years, a specific disease. And so he's got an entire encyclopedia online for what disease is linked to what mindset, what negative mindset. And it's always the same thing. It's around hate, fear, bitterness, unkindness, being judgmental, etc. I was speaking at an event in Melbourne, Australia, a few years ago. And during a break, one of the attendees came up to me, and she was a Greek woman living in Melbourne, Australia. And she started telling me about her husband who has multiple sclerosis. And I said to her, wait, hold on, let me see what Richard Mote says about multiple sclerosis. Oh, here's what he says. He says that the emotions and psychology, the psychology that will lead to multiple sclerosis a few years later is this: feeling trapped, feeling inflexible, being stubborn, feeling unsupported, some suppressed emotions, a polite exterior hiding bitterness, hardened or desensitized in order to avoid emotional suffering. And this woman that I'm speaking to, that I'm reading this out to, starts breaking down in tears, and she says, how does he know this? He's describing my husband to a T, her husband who had multiple sclerosis. At the age of 6 years old, her husband saw his father that had hung himself. And he had to run in home and call his grandmother and mother to come because his father was hanging from a tree in the backyard. And all of those decades of suppressed emotions, hardening himself to avoid the emotional pain of what he had witnessed, combined with the decision that he is all alone, he's isolated, he can't rely on grown-ups, since even the grown-ups can't save themselves, manifested itself as this terrible disease. Barbara Marciniak is a spiritual channelist saying that what returns people to a state of health is love. Understand that ill people are looking for love. There isn't enough love in their lives. It is love that brings them back. Dr. John DeMartini says, we get ill to teach us to love. It's not a punishment or a mistake. It's a gift. His clients that have healed, have had spontaneous remissions. It's when they've had almost a spiritual experience of returning themselves to a place of forgiveness and love. Louise Hay, the same thing. She was raped when she was very young, and 50 years later she experienced cervical cancer, and she worked on healing herself with forgiveness, therapy, detox. She says that love, understanding, and compassion were the answer. So imagine that you are a spiritual being having a human experience for a little while, and that your true nature is love and compassion and joy. And what you really want in life, truly what your soul wants, is for you to be authentic, to be creative, to experience joy and happiness. And you, for whatever reason, have decided that you're going to live a life of depression and sadness and bitterness, and you're a victim and all these kind of things, which is complete nonsense in the eyes of the divine. In the eyes of the divine, you are a part of the divine. You're a part of the soul of oneness with incredible creative powers. So if you say to him, "Hey, I'm ungrateful and I feel depressed and I'm a victim," upstairs they're just going to laugh. The divine is just going to laugh. Go, okay, great. Have you finished feeling sorry for yourself? Okay, you've created these life circumstances. Now what do you want to create? Okay, well, I want to create happiness and joy in a loving relationship and more prosperity. Great. Do you want to know the tools? Yes. The tools are, you got to tap into this invisible power of the subconscious mind. How? Hypnosis, subliminal messaging, affirmations, visualization, vision boards, meditation. All of these amazing tools that we know about very well. It's been documented for thousands of years by hundreds of people. The most successful people, most successful artists, etc., have used these techniques. And I want to go on a little bit about healing. John DeMartini says, whatever you disown in yourself, you attract into your life in one form or another. You marry your disowned parts. You have children that represent your disowned parts. You become business partners with your disowned parts. You attract them as clients and friends. Whatever you don't want to see or whatever you don't appreciate in yourself, you keep attracting into your life until you learn to love it. So think about the things that are in your life right now that you don't like. Why are they there? They are there to teach you what you need to learn to love. You get ill to teach you to love. It's a gift. Disease and illness are the signs and symptoms that the body uses to reveal to us where we are not loving. Your body's signs and symptoms are a feedback mechanism to help you be true to yourself. Richard Mote says, our number one goal in life is to live an authentic life, to live according to our internal guidances, our internal values, what your soul is telling you you should be doing. Failed relationships, health problems, unfulfilling careers are veiled messages for us to get us back on track. So think about every challenge you've had and every challenge you're having right now. What is really the message behind there? What is it really trying to move you towards? A few years ago, back in 2014, so I published my book, The Laptop Millionaire, in 2012. It became a New York Times bestseller, Wall Street Journal. And I'd spent close to a decade teaching people how to be more successful by using marketing techniques. And I was fed up with that. I kept teaching the same thing. I was bored with it. I wanted to share more spiritual things, more things around health and spirituality. Well, one day I wake up and I have a, I forget the name of it, thyroid, right. My thyroid had swelled up like the size of a golf ball, and it was pressing on my esophagus. It was making it very hard to swallow or to speak. And I asked Richard Mote what he thought about this, and I asked a couple of other people, and he said that the mind pattern behind this is that you need to start speaking your truth, Mark. You need to start sharing what you feel is truly meaningful, not just the stuff that's been paying the bills and been bringing in success from the seminars I was doing and the speaking I was doing at the time. And he gave me some affirmations, something along the lines of I now speak my truth, and something along those lines. And I remember posting this on Facebook at the time when I still had a Facebook account. And I wrote down that I have this condition and that I'm using these affirmations. And some people wrote some very disparaging comments on Facebook that, Mark, if you think that affirmations are going to cure this, you're nuts. You need to go and have surgery straight away. You need to go see a doctor. You need some drugs to reduce the inflammation of my thyroid. And I thought, no, listen, I'm not going to die tomorrow from this. And it's uncomfortable and it's painful, but this is a message for me. Well, within, I think, 2 weeks of really working on my mind patterns, really seeing what was there for me and making new choices, different new decisions, basically, and utilizing these affirmations, that swelling disappeared by itself. And I'm not saying that that's the approach to use for everything. If you have some major health problem, please, by all means, go see a doctor and use conventional therapies if that's what you feel is right for you. But I'm just saying that that's what I experienced in my own life. Now, Stuart Swerdlow says this. He says, the mind produces the physical effects based upon the electromagnetic qualities of thought. Everyone is given a chance to correct a mind pattern. When you do not, the negative thought degenerates into an emotional condition. If you do not correct it then, it becomes a physical manifestation as an illness in the body or the mind. Each part of the body represents a thought or a thought band that coalesces into an energy center. Whenever you have an illness, you can determine the mind pattern from the part of the body that is affected. Is it your left breast? Is it your thyroid? Is it your prostate? Is it the nerve endings in multiple sclerosis that get frayed away? You can determine the mind pattern by knowing what the symptoms are or the part of the body that's affected. Your DNA is created by atomic structure forming around the electromagnetic energies of your thought streams or mind patterns. Literally, you are what you think. Your health or lack of it is a direct result of your thoughts. You must take responsibility for yourself. The environments and accidents and germs and toxins are tools that the mind uses to create disease. And Stabriana here, I see in the comments, says, I also healed myself in 3 occasions with these methods. Well done, Stabriana. That's fantastic. I want to share with you a couple more things here, which is that over the years, if this sounds a little bit weird or too out there, all I can tell you is that it works. And if you have a mindset of faith, a mindset that I will trust that this works, I will believe that this works, and I will apply myself to this, you will get tremendous results. Your life will be, I don't want to say a series of miracles, but you will notice a lot of miracles happening in your life. Jim Carrey, I want to share with you some of the artists that were, I have a list here of some industrialists that had great success, the gurus, what they say, but also some artists and celebrities. Jim Carrey said this: I wrote myself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered and carried it in my wallet. This is in the 1990s. And I gave myself 3 years. I dated that check, that $10 million check Jim Carrey wrote to himself. He dated it to Thanksgiving 1995. I would think about, he would visualize and imagine and think about all the directors, the film directors interested in him and in his work. Just before Thanksgiving 1995, he found out he was going to make $10 million from the movie Dumb and Dumber. As far as I can tell, it's just about letting the universe know what you want and then working towards it while letting go of how it comes to pass. So you can't be attached to how it happens, because somehow this divine energy that's always there, that we're part of, that this universe, that this world, that our solid physical reality it stems from, will figure out the best, easiest, fastest, simplest route to make that happen into your life. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he came across the idea of bodybuilding when he was young. He saw this bodybuilder, British bodybuilder, Reg Parker, who ended up playing in Hollywood. He played Hercules in Hollywood. And as a young, I think 13, 14-year-old boy living in Austria, somehow Arnold Schwarzenegger got into his mind the idea that he would become like Reg Parker. He would build up his body, move to the US, get into acting, and become a superstar actor in Hollywood. He says the most important thing is that you have a vision, that you have a goal. My vision was that I wanted to become the greatest bodybuilder of all time. I saw it in my mind over and over again. What you do is you create a vision of who you want to be and then live that picture as if it were already true. He says it's all in the mind. The mind is really so incredible. When I moved on to the movies, the same thing. I visualized myself being a successful actor, earning big money. I could feel and taste success. I just knew it would happen. When I read that, it just echoed everything I'd been studying in my mid-20s around these self-help gurus, the law of attraction, talking about how they used affirmations and visualization to have a vision, to set a goal. Oprah Winfrey says, create the highest, grandest vision possible for your life because you become what you believe. Lady Gaga, she said she would repeat to herself every day, music is my life, music is my life, the fame is inside of me, I'm going to make a #1 hit, #1 record. And she says, you're saying it over and over again. It's not true yet, but you're saying it to yourself, and then one day, boom, it becomes true. Kanye West, he says, even when he was in 8th grade, he would tell himself in the 8th grade, I am the greatest rapper, the greatest rapper. He imagined himself being the greatest rapper. I really believed it, visualized it. I thought I was the best rapper in the world. I sat around and I thought about it. And I became Kanye West, he says. Will Smith, he says, in his mind, he was always an A-list Hollywood superstar, but the world didn't know about it. In his mind, he kept seeing himself as a superstar. So I promised you at the beginning that I'd share with you this strategy that's kind of like magic. I hope that you're getting some interesting ideas from this. I hope this is interesting. I've put together some thoughts and ideas that I want to share with you today. And you can get a lot of the strategies that I've used for identifying and eliminating limiting beliefs in the book called Unleash the Millionaire Within. Unleash the Millionaire Within. I've put all of these strategies into that book and many more. But I want to tell you about a technique called Cybernetic Transposition. It was created by Stuart Lichtman. Now, Stuart Lichtman was an engineer with 5 different PhDs in engineering. And in the 1970s, he had an accident, I believe, and he had a near-death experience. He died. He was dead for about 8 minutes. He was revived by the paramedics, and a few days later, maybe a week later, he had what he described like a sort of cosmic download. He was given by spirit, by the divine, a series of techniques that he calls cybernetic transposition for achieving even impossible goals. It's called cybernetic transposition. Please look it up. It is something that maybe less than 10,000 people in the world know about it, and much fewer than that have actually applied it, because it's quite elaborate. It's a series of 10 steps, and you've got to really get into it to understand the ins and outs of it. But it works like magic. It's part psychological, part spiritual as a technique. In the end, you create this perfect target statement, this perfect moment in time for a specific date in the future, and you merge it with a ball of light that comes out of your solar plexus, and the ball of light kind of goes out into the universe, and you let that, you allow the universe to create it. Part of the process, you got to write it down 100 times, that target statement, and you keep fine-tuning it until every single part of that statement is a 10 out of 10 for you in terms of joy and excitement, and you just love every single part of that target statement. You've got to then say it out loud 100 times. And I'm kind of skimming over a lot of the steps there, but because we don't have much time. But cybernetic transposition. So in 2007, I was organizing a retreat out in Cyprus, and I thought to myself, okay, I have this ebook on cybernetic transposition since 2004. Let me really get into it so I can have something new to share with my audience during this retreat. And I set myself a goal. I thought, okay, I want to create something that I've never created before. I want to think bigger than I've ever thought before. I wanted to move back to Greece, where I was born. I wanted to bring investments and jobs to the Greek people, and I wanted to work with the Greek government. I want to go straight to the top of the Greek government, work with the top-ranking officials in the Greek government, and I wanted to help raise funds for children's charities in Greece. Greece has been going through a pretty difficult time, and economically and all of that, and so that's what I wanted. I was living in Slovakia at the time. So I'm meditating on New Year's Eve 2017, 31st of December 2017. And I've been using the cybernetic transposition process. And keep in mind, when you use these techniques, you're not attached to how it's going to happen. You just trust and have faith that it will happen and that the universe will find a way to do it. And that morning, 31st of December, I'd read an article about how a Canadian company had taken over a Hershey chocolate factory in a specific part of Canada, where there was a lot of unemployment because that Hershey factory had closed down. And it revived the entire economy. Hundreds of new jobs were provided, and I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. It's legal to cultivate medicinal cannabis in Canada. That's good. I think Greece is going to legalize it in 3 months' time. I thought to myself, I've read about that. Okay, that's interesting. But when I meditated that evening, New Year's Eve, suddenly this flash of insight, this idea, this cosmic download came into my mind. An entire email came into my mind. And the idea was, send this email to the CEOs of the 10 largest cannabis companies in Canada. Tell them who you are. Tell them you want to bring them into Greece and help them to get their cultivation license. And to cut a long story short, the next morning, I got the CEO of a $4 billion company writing back to me. This is New Year's Day, 2018. And he said, Mark, we need to move on this ASAP. And he CC'd 2 of his executives in that email. 9 days later, I'm in the office of the Minister of Agriculture of Greece. He reveals to me, prior to revealing it to anyone in the world, it was not, very few people in the government knew what he was about to say. He told me what was going to be in the law that was going to be passed a few months later in Greece. Not in tremendous detail, but what they were thinking about putting in the law, because I went to that meeting saying I represent this Canadian company, because that CEO had asked me to, was interested in moving forward with this. And within a month, I had a 7-figure contract with one of the largest Canadian cannabis companies. They committed to investing 72 million euros into Greece, creating hundreds of jobs, creating hundreds of millions for the states in tax revenue. And what a psychic friend of mine has told me, as a result, I became managing director, vice chairman of the board, etc. What a psychic friend of mine has told me, talking about using mind power, that's another way of using mind power. People with a certain psychic ability. Well, he said that the reason why all of this has happened, and why I've been placed in a position of power, both corporate and politically, is because in the future, a foundation will be set up for underprivileged children. And this industry, the medicinal cannabis industry, will become so lucrative in the future. In fact, he said it will be on a par with the oil industry. And the oil industry right now is $1.7 trillion a year. And let's assume that it goes down by half. This is going to be a huge industry. He said in the future, this foundation will be set up for underprivileged kids, and your company, Mark, and 2 other companies will make such profits that a percentage of those profits will go towards that foundation, and we will help hundreds of thousands, up to 1 million underprivileged children. Now again, I could have never, ever, I could have worked 10,000 years diligently and never achieved the outcome that somehow the divine was able to place in my lap in a matter of minutes. That is something, that is why I started off saying that I'm very curious to see, in my position of leadership within a corporate environment, working very closely with the government, how these kinds of techniques will be assimilated, applied, accepted, or not by the team that will work in such a facility. I am fascinated to see what happens when you have a medicinal cannabis company and you speak to the seeds. You touch them, talk to them, you bless the water that then feeds the seeds, that waters the seeds. What happens when you have Tesla plate technologies? Tesla plates is another thing that's fascinating to check out of Australia. Tesla plate, Tesla energy, that provides. They've shown basically that these Tesla plates made out of titanium, which they have a very specific frequency to them, that they allow crops to grow much better and much more abundantly when they're around this energy. What will happen when we use within the team affirmations, visualization? What happens when, before we enter a business meeting, we rehearse what is going to happen in that business meeting, in that sales meeting, again and again in our minds? What happens when we have an advantage, such as remote viewing into some future situations? What happens when you program yourself with subliminal message, and that the entire team is on the same wavelength, that they all have the exact same vision together? That is it's the kind of questions that I'm asking myself now, and I'll be very curious to explore further and write possibly in a subsequent book. But let's take this over to questions, because I think I've really gone over time, Clementine and Krasimir.
Okay, so we had a question from a participant. So she said she had a cancer a few months ago, and results found that they are positive now, that she's cured, but she's still on medication, and she's afraid the cancer will come back to her. So how to deal with that? That she feels that is affected her life, her work, and she feels now that she doesn't deserve happiness, prosperity, and she feels unlucky. What tips can you give her to change her way of thinking that she deserves to be happy?
You know, I would rather take that question privately and speak to her one-on-one, if that's possible, because, you know, when you're dealing with something like cancer, it's very sensitive what I would have to say to her. But there is so much information I can share, Clementine. It's just not something that I feel comfortable in answering in just a flippant minute or two. So for that, I'd prefer to do that more privately.
Okay. So most people have difficulties to ask questions in their life. And we know that if we want better answer, we need to ask better question. How can you learn to ask better question?
That's a good question. How to ask better questions? It's usually a better. People often say to themselves or go into straight away, I can't do it. It's not possible. Well, a better question is simply to ask how. How can I do it? How can we make this possible? Who could have the answer? Who could help me? What's really behind this is that people are afraid of being embarrassed, that they don't feel like they feel afraid that someone might turn them down if you ask for help. My mindset has always been, I can reach and talk to anyone. If I need to reach the Prime Minister, if I need to reach a minister, if I need to reach the CEO of a $4 billion company, I have no problem in doing that, as long as, of course, I have something of value to share or to provide, right? So, I mean, I understand. I put myself into the shoes of that person. What are the outcomes that they're looking for? What would be helpful to them? And then I approach them, speaking a little bit to that before I present my request. How to ask better questions? Really, it comes from being more confident and not being afraid of rejection. Really, if you're confident in yourself and you're not afraid of rejection, you can approach people with those kinds of requests or questions on how can they help you, and usually I do this, you know, can you help me, and if not, who would you recommend that I speak to? Because even if someone is not willing to or doesn't have the time to participate in your project right now or answer your question, you know, they could still connect you to someone else that might. And also, I'm of the approach that if I really need to connect to someone, I have a sequence of 7 different contacts. Contact points. In other words, I will contact that person 7 times over the course of maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months, with different angles, different questions, different ideas, in order to get in touch with that person. Better questions as well. You know, any question that opens up possibility rather than closes down possibility, it's a better type of question. And what I love to do is I love to tap into my own creativity. So, for example, I'll take my journal, I'll take a pen or a pencil, and I'll start brainstorming different ways how. So let's say that I wanted to heal from cancer. I would start asking myself, a better kind of question is, okay, who can help me? How can I heal from this rapidly and enjoy the process? How can I heal from this in 30 days and enjoy the process? How can I find people who've healed themselves from this in 30 days or in 60 days and enlist their help? Who else has had this challenge? Who else has had this challenge and overcame it? Who else can help me, as I said? Even better, what does this condition, why did I manifest this situation? Or what does this condition have to teach me? What is behind this truly? What is the true underlying psychology or emotion that manifested as this condition? Those are better kinds of questions when it comes to health. How can I detoxify over the next 30 days? That would be another really great question. I love going to the sanctuary in Thailand, which is a detox center where they do a very deep cleanse. I mean, I've seen women in their 50s that come out of a 14-day detox. They're looking 35. I've seen people with tremendously bad health conditions come out of that 14-day detox just completely renewed, rejuvenated, feeling like $1 million and without their condition anymore. So there's a lot to be said there as well about detoxifying when it comes to the health outcomes. But yeah, back to your question. Better questions. Yeah, it starts with feeling more comfortable in asking for help.
So we have also Victoria that wanted to know if you can share some tips how to better take care of ourselves.
How to better take care of herself. Well, it starts with a mind pattern of loving yourself. It starts with a mind pattern of understanding that you are important. I'll tell you my mindset, my belief. Billions of years ago, there was no universe, and a loving consciousness condensed its thought energy into this ball of thought, created this massive explosion, and out of pure thought energy, all physical matter of our universe came from that, erupted from that. And this universe has been created for me, for you, for us to enjoy. And our life is a gift. Think about it this way. This universe our world doesn't need to be this way. Our world, our consciousness could be, our existence could be that we just sit in a chair in the dark, alone for eternity. That could be a world. That could be a type of existence. But no, we actually have consciousness. We have the ability to move, to meet. You could live in a world where you're the only living thing that exists. And think about the isolation and loneliness and sadness and boredom that would generate. What I'm trying to say is this. My understanding is that this universe was created for me. It's there to support me. It's not a dangerous place. It's a place for me to explore my creativity. It's a place to support me, and it's a gift. Our creativity, our creative power is a gift. Our life is a gift. So with that kind of mindset, understanding that you are a small part of an infinite, of the divine, with this awesome creative power, why would you not take care of yourself? Why would you not take care of your body, this vehicle you have? that allows you to navigate through this gift called life. Of course you take care of yourself. Of course you are important. Of course you love yourself. You are infinite. You're infinite love. That's the truth of you. What this would actually require is going a little bit more in depth and figuring out the limiting beliefs. Here's how I did it when I was in my 20s and overcame depression. I asked myself the question, I started writing in my journal, I'm not good enough because ... I hate myself because ... people don't like me because ... I'm not popular because ... I don't have a girlfriend because ... All these kinds of negative beginnings of sentences to prompt my subconscious to see what limiting beliefs would come up. I'm not good because I have acne, or because I am too skinny, or because whatever came to me in my early 20s, I realized every single thing that I'd written down was a negative belief, a limiting belief that was infecting my life, that was sapping my life, poisoning my life, and I needed to deal with each and every single one of those beliefs. One of the techniques that I did is I wrote down the exact opposite belief, and I wrote down why this new, opposite, positive belief was true. So if I said, I am ugly, I'm unattractive, which is a belief I held on to for many, many years. If I wrote down that as a limiting belief, so I wrote down the opposite belief. I am gorgeous, I am sexy. And I wrote down 3 or 4 reasons why I could say that that's true, because my mom said I'm good looking. I actually wrote that down because that girl once said that I looked cute, whatever, and I dismissed it because I thought I was ugly, so I dismissed it immediately. But I wrote that down, and the point is that your mind cannot hold on to 2 opposite beliefs at the same time. Either it will believe this one or the opposite, right? So by strengthening this new opposite belief, it starts collapsing the legs of this tabletop belief. A belief is like a tabletop. It's supported by legs. If you start injecting some doubt by having a new belief, you're sweeping away at the legs of the table, and the tabletop collapses, that belief collapses. Why am I sharing this? Victoria is asking about how to be more, take care of herself better. Well, that's not really the question. The question is, how can I love myself better? How can I realize that I'm so important? Because if that's your mind, and that life is a gift, if that's your mindset, you naturally do the actions and get the results that are in line with someone who feels important, who takes care of themselves, etc., etc. So I don't know if I'm making any sense there, but it needs to go a little bit deeper than just how to take care of yourself. It's not just, hey, go and have a day at the spa or something like that. Treat yourself. It doesn't quite work like that. You actually have to do some real deep inner work.
Thank you, Mark. So we have Sabine who asks, Mark, when you change your life, the first success and the first obstacle came. How did you overcome your fears and continue on your path? What kept you going?
Sorry, can you repeat that question, Clémentine? There was a part that I didn't quite hear.
How did you overcome your fears and continued on your path? What kept you going?
Yeah, I didn't hear the beginning of the sentence before that.
Okay. When you change your life, the first success and the first obstacle came.
The first obstacle. Okay,
yeah,
yes, right.
How did you overcome your fears and continue on your path? What kept you going? Which routines did you implement?
Well, I remember I hadn't spoken to my father in a number of years, and for a different reason, he had come to London for some event, for some conference or something. And I met up with my father for the first time in a few years. And I'd done a lot of work of forgiveness and letting go, and I'd done a lot of work on myself. And my father was a journalist, so he would have to keep writing news stories and try to sell them to the newspapers rather, for $100, $120, something like that. And here I was. I'd written a 70-page ebook, and I was making $300 a day in passive income from something that I'd written. And I was expecting him to be very happy for me, proud even. And I meet up with him in London, and we catch up, and I tell him what I've been up to. Dad, you won't believe it. This is fantastic. I went to the seminar. I set up a website. I'm selling these ebooks online, and instead of him being happy, he started saying, "No, this is not true. It's a lie. You're not making $300 a day. They're tricking you. It's impossible." And I was shocked. I didn't speak about it again with him, but I started sabotaging myself. I started not showing up at meetings. I started letting things slide because my father was not accepting, or he reacted so negatively to me having this success. And again, it took me a few weeks to realize what was going on, and I went back. I did the same process. I asked myself certain questions to identify my limiting beliefs, and I realized, okay, wow, that meeting created new limiting beliefs, and I had to work on them again. But really, what helped me stay on the path and overcome obstacles was love. It was the idea that I found myself making a commitment, a promise to myself, a vow to myself. This is before I attended that seminar. I was homeless for about 4 months at this point, where I'm about to share with you, and I made a decision that no matter what it takes, I'm going to figure out a way to overcome this financial situation I found myself in. And when I do that, I will devote my life to helping other people have transformation in their lives. And that's why I wrote ebooks, I did seminars, audiobooks, conferences, etc., etc. Because that was part of the deal, that was part of the vow. Now, within 30 days after making that decision, that vow, I was making $300 a day on the internet. So what was driving me forward and helping me overcome obstacles was, I was making money, but what was driving me beyond that was that I had to help other people with the information that I'd gleaned, the information that I'd shared. I've studied a lot of people who've created New York Times bestsellers, and almost in every single case, what is behind that success is a tremendous desire to share information with people, to help people in some way. It's not enough. It's not just the fame. It's not just the success. There needs to be something deeper that's more aligned with your authentic self. So some kind of love. Same thing with my first ebook. My first ebook was about diabetes, and my commitment when I wrote it was I want to help 1,000 people who have diabetes overcome diabetes thanks to natural means. And that kind of continued. We're now about 16 years later. I'm working on this medicinal cannabis company where cannabis can heal all kinds of PTSD, arthritis, fibromyalgia, possibly endometriosis, many different types of cancers. There is a lot of evidence that people are using cancer to, at the very least, reduce their symptoms from these kinds of conditions. So it's all linked in a roundabout way. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question there.
Yes, thank you, Mark. We have another 2 questions. So the next one is, how can I overcome bad economic and bad health chronic disease?
Economic problems and disease.
Mm-hmm.
It starts by being very clear about what you want to achieve. Complete and total clarity on what does that look like when you're on the other side. And then, there are so many, I would say, you've got to go to the root cause. Why? What are the limiting beliefs and the fears that have led to your financial situation? What are the limiting beliefs, negative beliefs, the mindset, the mind pattern, the emotions that have led to your health challenges? Then, one by one, start destroying and eliminating those limiting beliefs, those negative mind patterns. Then, one by one, start reprogramming the positive beliefs. Use affirmations, visualizations, hypnosis, subliminal messages, etc. Use meditation. Start with that. Meditate twice a day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Meditate twice a day. That will be a good start as well. Then, okay, let's say you have a goal, a specific goal for what you want your finances to be. Let's say you want to earn, I don't know, £10,000 a month. Write down 100 reasons why you must earn £10,000 a month. Write down 50 reasons of all the pleasure it's going to give you, and 50 reasons of all the pain you're going to avoid in your life by earning that kind of money. Same thing with your health. Let's say you want to overcome a specific health problem. Let's call it fibromyalgia. Why not? Write down 100 reasons why you must overcome fibromyalgia. If you don't have 100 reasons why to do something, you're not going to do it. So write down 100 reasons why you want to make more money and 100 reasons why you want to overcome that specific health condition. Do those things, and you'll be way further down the line and better off than the current situation.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. So we have Anna who's asking, if I want to achieve 1 million sales in 1 year, the method I must use is to imagine how it will be when I achieve this and behave like it was already happened, and then write everyday relevant affirmation. Is this the way?
I would highly recommend that you use, please check out the book, Unleash the Millionaire Within. So it's one of my books, Unleash the Millionaire Within, but also use Cybernetic Transposition. Use Cybernetic Transposition. Look it up online, Cybernetic Transposition. This will be like magic for you, especially with a goal like that. And I want to share a little story about this, by the way. So I used Cybernetic Transposition recently to raise 10 million euros in investments. And because of this, I had a friend from back in the day in the UK emailed me and said, "Oh, Mark, I'm going to need to raise some finance for my company. What do you recommend that I do?" Because he'd heard that I was raising some finance. And now he was expecting me to tell him, go speak to these venture capitalists, prepare a business plan that looks like that, the tactical aspect of things. And instead, what I said to him is what I've been sharing with you during this presentation, which is use Cybernetic Transposition, get clarity, use this affirmation, use this mind technique. And he laughed, saying, "I should have guessed that you would be answering me this kind of thing," because it wasn't at all what he was expecting. He was expecting the tactics of it, as it were. But then he realized that was not the thing to ask me, that I would be answering in this way. In Cybernetic Transposition, there are examples of target statements for raising finance, raising funds. There is an example in there for achieving great sales or commissions as well. So Anna, I highly recommend that you check that out. That's the starting point. You need to have the same beliefs that someone who achieves €1 million a year in sales has. You got to figure out the people who do €1 million a year in sales. How do they think? What do they believe? What do they do every day? There's this example in the book Mind Power for the 21st Century by John Kehoe. And I forget the name of the salesperson that he interviewed, but he met this salesperson. John Kehoe met this salesperson. And this salesperson was the top salesperson in his entire organization, doing well over $1 million a year in sales. And the salesperson told John, or the author, that every night before going to sleep, he closes his eyes and he spends 10 minutes visualizing and rehearsing in his mind all the amazing phone calls he's going to do the next day, and how thrilled the people are going to be on the receiving end of those phone calls, and he sees himself signing contract after contract after contract, with delighted customers, and that his bosses are delighted, and that he's celebrated within the organization, and he gets this award at the end of the year. He visualizes that for 10 minutes before going to sleep every night. Yes, please use all these other things. Meditate, do your affirmations. There's a whole range of affirmations for salespeople. Visualize it, subliminal messages, etc. Vision boards. I'm a big fan of vision boards. And I see a question here from Albena, if you want to read it out, Clémentine.
Yes, we have a last question. So Albena is asking, is forgiveness an important part of your model? If so, could you please explain more?
So back in 2009, I did a bit of work with Stuart Swerdlow, and he's an intuitive empath, he's a medical intuitive as well. And he said to me, use the golden altar technique, the golden altar forgiveness technique, to forgive your parents. There was a lot of resentment built up there over my childhood. And he said, when you do this, it'll take a while. It might take a few months of every day visualizing this golden altar, and you place people on it that you need to forgive, and you say, and so you imagine yourself in a specific type of blue color. I forget the name of that blue color exactly. Royal blue, I think. Maybe it's pale blue, I forget. But you visualize yourself in blue. You visualize a golden chakra, like a thread, a golden thread from your heart chakra to their heart chakra. They're on this golden altar over in the distance. And you say, I forgive you and release you from all negative experiences between us, whether real or imagined. I forgive you and release you. I did this for years, this forgiveness exercise, part of my meditation, visualization, affirmation routine on a daily basis. I called it my daily power regimen. And what Stuart Swerdlow told me is that when you do this forgiveness exercise, it will open up your finances. So, yes, to answer your question, Albena, that forgiveness is a big part of what I did. I attended a landmark education seminar back in the day, back in 2004, 2005, which was a lot about forgiveness, so that helped as well. Reading about spirituality also moved me towards forgiveness. Reading about the emotional, psychological emotions that create cancer and other diseases also moved me towards gratitude, love, joy, forgiveness, and so yeah, it is an important aspect of both health, well-being, success, wealth. You need to be able to forgive and move on. And of course, in the golden altar technique, you place yourself last on that golden altar, and you say to yourself, now I forgive and release myself from all negative experiences that I've attracted to myself, whether real or imagined. I forgive and release myself. And then you visualize yourself in the brown color to ground yourself. And there's a whole specific routine there. The people that you place on the golden altar, they kind of disappear in a little haze of purple smoke kind of thing. But yeah, forgiveness is important. And the next question there, what kind of meditation? It's transcendental meditation, TM. But to be honest, I changed up. I use also Wayne Dyer's Ah meditation and Om meditation. Before going to sleep with our little coconuts, or two little girls, I ask them, what are they grateful for that day? What they're grateful for in general. We do a little Om meditation before they go to sleep. During the day, we do our affirmations. So my little girls, since the age of about 3 years old, since they could speak, actually, they do affirmations. They do every little cell in my body is well. Every day in every way, I am better and better. Every day in every way, I feel fantastic. I am amazing. I love my life. I can do everything good. Today, by the way, was their birthday. They just turned 5 years old, and they learned how to swim Today they swam for the first time without their those things around, those braces or whatever they call around their arms.
Yes.
Forget the name for it. They swam for the first day, and they are just very confident little girls because they've been programming themselves from a young age for, I can do everything good. I can do everything good. And it's a bit of a game, you know, and we have fun with it. But yeah, these techniques work. You just need to have faith. You need to have belief. And you know, I'm not a fan necessarily of religious texts, but I'm sure that in the Bible there's stories and information about to those that have faith, more is given, or something along those lines. You know, I believe that this universe is a spiritual universe, and that we are having a physical experience within a spiritual universe, that the true world is a spiritual world, and this physical reality is really some sort of hologram, some sort of video game level, with some hacks, some rules to it. For example, whatever you put after the words I am, or visualization. Visualization and affirmations have a lot to do. Learning how to work with the subconscious mind has a lot to do with how you get to create in this world.
You know, when you say for your girl that they're using affirmation, actually, this is my plan for our baby, Julia. But she's confused between 4 languages. But Gabi, he, like, last week, he watched his first video with Tony Robbins. And we asked him, Gabi, what did you understand? He said that he was talking about the power, about love. And he said, but you know, it was my first video. And what did you do after? After I watched my Mickey Mouse, you know. Mark, by the way, I really want to say thank you for being here with us. And the reason to be here is because we organize with another amazing coaches, Global Money Community, and we have participants from 15 different countries, and exclusive guests like you and like Alan and Peter. The next week is going to be Pavlina. I really want to say huge thank you for being here with us tonight. Madam, you want to say something else?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your time. And
My pleasure.
yes. So
thank you, everyone. Thank you to everyone listening. And I hope to see you at some event, maybe in the future, you know, and that we meet in person. So thank you.
that would be great.
Yes. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Have a lovely